now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's. It's a tongue twister. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's to get an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, if you've ever watched this show, you've guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. And if you're looking to get a signed copy, fear not, boys and girls. All you got to do is visit the website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the book. Or if you're looking to get a discount for a signed copy, and if you want to get more than one, just drop me an email directly, and I'll hook you up, Billy@TalkinBoxing. Let me spell it for you, all right? It's TalkinBoxing.com. Coming up a little bit later, we'll have Dax Kahn join us and my man Alex Purtalli. We're going to be talking about the fight, Terence Crawford against Jose Benavidez Jr. took place last night on ESPN, which incidentally, I don't know about you guys. I know I've been critical about Mark Kriegel, and I'm not a big fan of his, but aside from that, and he really wasn't even that bad, beside from just how I felt. You know what it is? It's him replacing Teddy Atlas. I just felt that Teddy Atlas was a mainstay, although somebody had told me, Mark Kriegel, give him a chance. Well, you know what? He sounded pretty good last night, and so did Joe Tessitore. I mean, the commentating was, I thought, was the way I want to see and listen to a fight. I mean, there was no yelling and screaming. There was intelligent commentary. They knew what they were talking about, and they called the fight like it should be called. The action was happening in front of them, and that's what they were talking about. And I thought it was a pleasure to watch and listen to a broadcast that is supposed to be done like that, at least in my opinion. But anyway, Terence Crawford, in case you missed it, knocked out Jose Benavidez Jr. in the 12th and final round. As a matter of fact, when it was waved off, I believe there was about 19 seconds left. The official time went down as 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Terence Crawford improved to 34-0 with 25 knockouts, and Benavidez Jr. Losing for the first time in his career, 27-1 right now. Took place in the home area, I should say, of Terence Crawford, Omaha, Nebraska. And I thought it was an extremely entertaining fight. And I had moments when I'm saying to myself, and don't get me wrong, I think Terence Crawford is either the number one pound for pound or tied with Vasily Lomachenko for number one pound for pound in the world today. And I said to myself, well, I wasn't taking anything away from Crawford, but I thought maybe the size difference was a little too much. That was until the first 5 rounds were done. After that, Terence Crawford shifted into another gear. And talking about shifting into another gear, joining me right now to get his thoughts is my man Sal Rocky Senecola. Good morning, Sal.
Hey, good morning, Bill. How you doing today, pal?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing very well. What was your thoughts on the fight, brother?
Verbatim, pretty much what you thought. I love the commentary. I thought they did just a great job. And but the fight itself, it was entertaining. I thought that Benavidez had his moments, especially early on. if he was going to do anything or to have to establish any kind of direction or plan, it was in the first 2 or 3 rounds. He let that opportunity go, and the master of disaster, Crawford, just took over. And he basically looked like he was having a fun night out there. And don't get me wrong, Benavidez did have his moments, but they were becoming fewer and fewer as the fight progressed along. And ultimately, I'll tell you what, Terence Crawford just put on an exhibition. He just was just great fighter, pound for pound. In fact, I found myself looking at his style and his southpaw stance, and I reminisced a little bit when I used to be an early sparring partner for Livingston Bramble. Maybe they're not in the same class, but he was coming up the ranks rather fast with his style of being a little awkward and being a southpaw and being able to hit you in a way that I saw Terence Crawford. It was just a little reminiscent, but I think Terence Crawford did a fabulous job last night. And he truly is, in my opinion, one of the pound for pound best out there today.
Yeah, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and childrens of all ages, we're sorry, Sal's having some video problems, so the shot you just saw of Sal was his itty-bitty face in the center of that big, giant blue screen. But we'll work on that during the next break. But, I was thinking of you, Sal, during the fight because I was saying to myself, is that the issue that Crawford was having early on was the height issue? He seemed to seemingly, at least in the beginning, have a little trouble. Then he was able to connect. I think the early body work helped him. The other thing was that Benavidez, he stopped doing. He had his game plan. It seemed to work in the beginning of the fight, but I don't know if he was tiring. Post fight, Terence Crawford felt that he saw him tiring. I didn't really see that. I did see him stand there with his hands down. The other thing I noticed about Terence Crawford is, although he didn't look disciplined at the weigh-in when they had their little melee, but he certainly was disciplined during the fight. He would not get sucked into Benavidez trying to get him to fight him against the ropes, to fight Benavidez against the ropes. But to be honest with you, Sal, I thought that might have been advantageous for Crawford. I thought that, when Benavidez was trying to lure him in, that might have been a decent game plan for Crawford. I could see Crawford trying to, fight on the outside with a guy the same size as him or even smaller. But on the inside, I thought maybe that might have been a smart move for Crawford. What was your thoughts on him not taking the bait, so to speak, and moving in close?
Well, I'll tell you what, Crawford, that's why he's one of the best. He's a thinking fighter out there. He's a strategist. He looked at it. And I think those early rounds, that's why I said earlier, I think Benavidez, his best shot was early on because he came out there to try and establish a jab. But what I saw Benavidez do was just follow Crawford around the ring. There was no counter step to cut it off, to do anything else. He was content in just trying to throw his jab at him while he was following Crawford around the ring. So he fell into the Crawford trap, if you will, or the style of fighting the fight that Crawford wanted to dictate and tone. He had the first 2 rounds to establish and do something different. He didn't, and the momentum you could clearly see was going towards Crawford as the fight progressed. I don't think Crawford was doing anything more than what I know you're going to hate me for saying this, what a Floyd Mayweather would have done is just assess who he's in the ring with and how he's going to outsmart him. And that's what I think he did the first 2 or 3 rounds. And, sure, he could have been back on the ropes, lure him in, get him there. But I think, the overall size difference, hey, guess what? He's early developing into the welterweight that his body's going to fulfill and be able to handle. And so, he was taking his time. That's all it was. He wasn't trying to figure out anything else other than the fighter's style and how he's going to play chess game with this guy and be the best. And he did.
Well, I didn't see, and we're going to actually talk a little later about Mayweather and some news with Manny Pacquiao and so on and so forth. But I see no similarities between Crawford and Mayweather in any way, shape, or form. And I'll
No,
tell
no,
you,
no, no, no,
no, wait.
no similarities.
I'll tell you why. No, I think I know what you meant, but this was a huge difference between the styles. And as a matter of fact, Benavidez's father, Jose Sr., was saying that in between one of the interviews live in between rounds, they were saying that they appreciated that Crawford wasn't running. And now, if you look at and you know, we get into this argument all the time, not you and I, but you know, the fans that are, you know, like Floyd, who you know, whatever, but they claim that what Floyd does is the sweet science. He's avoiding being hit. But the part that they leave out is that he's running. It's I don't care what you call it. He runs. He moves out of the way, but he's not in position to inflict damage on his opponent until he sets up again, throws a punch or two, then he leaves and he runs. I'm going to use the word run. Well, Crawford does not do that. Crawford might dance around a little bit here and there to just set up what he's going to do next, but he does not run. And this was actually in Benavidez's favor because of his lack of mobility, and they were hoping he wasn't going to run, and he didn't. A guy that stands in front of you, giving up a height and reach, like Terence was, and then is able to land punches and spin you around and get on the right side of the foot that he wants to be on. And all of those things that he's able to do. Boys and girls, that's the sweet science. That's a guy who's in position, giving up. The reason why I respect Terence Crawford so much, and the reason why I'm such a big fan, is because he's willing to exchange, and he's a finisher. Even the commentating, you know, I was getting to the point where I'm saying this fight's going the distance, Sal. And then in that last round, when he rocked him with that shot, that uppercut, he was, you know what? He found the home for that uppercut early in the fight. He landed it lightly, and then I never saw him go back to it until that drop when he hit him in that final round.
Uppercut.
And then the commentator said, "Okay, here we go. This is what Crawford does best. He's one of the best finishers." And I happen to glance at the time left, and I'm saying, yeah, he doesn't have much time. But man, what I couldn't agree more. Talk about knowing how to finish. Going in for the kill when it's safe to go in for the kill is what Terence Crawford did, and that's what makes him an exciting fighter, Sal.
Well, you said it, and you hit it on all points. And my only analogy was with the Floyd Mayweather comment was that the first one or two rounds he was kind of assessing, just staying back, figuring out. He wasn't running in no way. And what I love about Crawford is just exactly what you said. He stays in the pocket. He's in position to strike his opponent at any time. And he was using some defensive skills, but he was right there all along to hit him. And you're right, man. That right hand uppercut was just devastating for Benavidez. And you know, he couldn't recover from that. And what the commentator said, just as you said, well, let's see what kind of finisher Terence Crawford really is. And bam, he just jumped on him, saw it was safe, and he went off on him until the referee said, okay, he's had enough, we've had enough, and I'm going to make sure that no one gets hurt. But Crawford, he impressed me, very much so. And I look forward to seeing him fight over and over again and again.
You know, you look at the welterweight division. Do you look at the top names in the division aside from Terence Crawford? Of course, you know, there's fights that we would love to see with the other top welterweights. I think with Terence Crawford, we will see them. I don't think there's much that we need to wait or marinate, or I think they're there. I think it's time to have them, you know, in my opinion. I mean, what other, and no disrespect to Benavidez, but what other non-top 4, top 3 welterweights out there would it make any sense for Terence Crawford to fight? I mean, what's your thoughts?
No, guess what? Terence Crawford has arrived. He can fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. And, I mean, he's seasoned. He knows what he's doing in the ring. He's cognizant of the fact of where he is, who he is, and how he's going to dismantle an opponent, and you could put him in with any welterweight in the world, and I'm sure he'll fare very well. And yeah, you cannot see him take a step back and fight a non-entity who's not a top contender or champion in the welterweight division. It wouldn't do him any good. It wouldn't do Service any good. It wouldn't do the game any good. He's a top contender right now for the welterweight title, and he could fight any one of those guys. And we'll see what we would expect from Terence Crawford, a ringmaster who knows how to stay in the pocket, exchange blows, slip punches, and land devastating punches that are going to definitely cripple his opponent. I'm a big Terence Crawford fan. Can you tell?
I'm a huge fan. I mean, the fights I'm talking about, of course, Errol Spence Jr. Is a fight that I would love to see.
That'd be a great fight.
I'd love to see him fight that extinct fighter.
Me too. That's what I'm thinking about.
Keith Thurman. And then you got Sean Porter out there right now. Even Danny Garcia. I mean, those are the fights for him. I don't see any other name. I don't see any other name that I would want to see. Unless some of these guys that claim they're retired want to come out and really prove it. We'll get to that in a little bit, but just to get everyone caught up on the rest of that card, Shakur Stevenson. This kid, what promise he's got. He improved to 9-0 with a first-round knockout of Viral Simeon, who drops to 21-3 with 9 knockouts. It's funny. You're watching a fight, and the commentating, who I thought did a great job, they're like, okay, this is actually going to be a really big test. Simeon is no slouch. He's no this, he's no that, no something. Boom, he's knocked out. And, the fight's over. And I was like, man, I guess he passed that test. Another fight on that card, the resurrection of Mike Alvarado. He's improved to 40 wins and 4 losses, with 28 of his wins coming by knockout when he stopped Robbie Cannon with a second-round knockout, 41 seconds into the round. Cannon drops to 16-14 with 3 draws. Stay busy, get you back in the ring. We're going to get you a bigger fight. Mike is the level of this fight. I mean, Mike Alvarado, mile high, if you will, obviously has seen better days, and I think Top Rank is just trying to get him in position for a big fight. I just hope that it's not against a guy like Terence Crawford or somebody like that, because he wouldn't stand a chance. Yes, he knocked out Pea Shooter Cannon, who come on, we're talking 16-14. He's almost a 500 fighter. Alvarado, even though he's seen better days, needs to knock out those guys without a problem. And also on that card, in the junior middleweight division, Carlos Adames improved to 15-0 with 12 knockouts when he took care of Joshua Conley, who drops to 14-3-1. Another 2-rounder, 2 minutes and 17 seconds of the second round was when that fight was waved off. Another fight in the World Boxing Super Series in the bantamweight division, Zolani Teat improved to, and I think I keep pronouncing his name wrong. I don't think it's Teat. I think it's. Do you remember how they pronounce that name, Sal? It's not Teat. That's how I pronounce it, but it's whatever it is. Zolani. Let's just say ZT.
Say Zolani.
Yeah, ZT improved to 25-3 with 21 knockouts. He scored a 12-round unanimous decision over Mikhail Alovovian, who was in his 4th fight going into the ring. Very accomplished amateur, but did not fare as well in the pros, at least against ZT. 4-1 now, Alanian. With that, the way the judges scored it, 114-111 twice, 114-110. So that's the quarterfinal, one of the quarterfinals for the World Boxing Super Series bantamweight division. They also had a quarterfinal in the cruiserweight when Andrew the Beast Tabiti, an American fighter, improved to 17-0 when he won a 12-round decision over Ruslan Favor, who drops his first fight of his career, 23-1 now, 116-111, 115-112, 114-113, with the way the judges scored it. And a heavyweight fight on that card. Andre Fedosov. He improved to 31-3 with 25 knockouts when he won a 10-round decision over Joey DeWedgeko, who drops to 19-6-4. Those were some fights that took place on the undercard. We'll talk a little bit more about those fights a little later. But Sal, some news I wanted to throw at you before you take a coffee break is Manny Pacquiao signed with Al Haymon during this past week. And we had heard a couple of weeks ago that Floyd Mayweather wanted to have a rematch with Pacquiao. You and I have been talking about that potential fight since the end of the first fight. As time went on and as these careers went on, I believe it's the only fight for both of these fighters. Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao would stand zero chance against Terence Crawford. As a matter of fact, I would love to see Floyd fight Crawford because, quite honestly, Crawford would kick the crap out of him. Or Errol Spence or any of those. So I mean, in all fairness, Pacquiao or Mayweather would not stand a chance with these top welterweights, although with each other. Here's my problem. I don't have a problem with Pacquiao signing with Haymon. Obviously, that's a prereq to the rematch. But here's what the discussion is. They're forcing Floyd Mayweather. This is the one thing I always lose respect for Floyd when it gets to this. We both agree that that's the only fight. I think anybody that would be willing to pay for the rematch would agree that that's the fight. If you want to see Floyd come out of retirement, Manny Pacquiao's been active. If you want to see Floyd fight somebody, let him fight Pacquiao. But as Floyd does, he's requiring Manny Pacquiao to fight a fight first. Why? I don't know. But guess who they want him to fight first? You know? Do you know already?
No, I have no idea. I could only imagine because I would tell Floyd to go jump in a lake or fly a kite.
Well, here's who it is.
Dictate who I have to fight and when I have to fight. I'm upset because the only fight, you know how I felt. Manny Pacquiao, the only fight he should have held out for, the only fight he should have pushed, the only fight he should have used the media on his side to get was Floyd Mayweather back in the ring when he first came back. That's it. But anyway. No, who's he supposed to fight, Bill? That's a trivia question.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Floyd
Mayweather had said, let's go back to what he said. He said that he wanted to fight Pacquiao, and that fight would happen in December of this year. Okay?
Oh, wow.
That is what he said. No, he said this several weeks ago. We already talked about this. And now, after Manny signs with Al Haymon, Floyd Mayweather says, well, first, he's got to fight Adrian Broner in January of 2019. And then, should he beat Broner, he gets to fight Mayweather again. You know what I say? If I'm Pacquiao, I say, why should I fight Adrian Broner? No disrespect to Adrian Broner, even though, he deserves a little. This was a guy that said he would require, they would have to pay him $100 million to fight either Manny Pacquiao or Floyd. Why should Manny Pacquiao fight Adrian Broner? I mean, I'm not saying that I don't think Adrian Broner would beat Pacquiao, because I really don't think he would. But the truth of the matter is what difference does that fight make? If Pacquiao wants to fight Mayweather, why don't they just get in the ring? If they don't fight in December like Floyd conned everybody into believing, then let them fight in January. Why should he fight Broner? What significance does Pacquiao Broner have, Sal?
What wasn't Broner one of Mayweather's proteges or something?
Yeah, until anyone that's that's halfway decent that goes under Floyd's wing ends up turning into
well, that's what I'm saying.
Adrian Broner.
This is Mayweather's redemption tribute to Broner, is just saying, hey, I'll give you this opportunity, make some money to do this and that, while he wears out Pacquiao one fight more for him to face. No, there's no need. I mean, what the heck? There's no significance behind the fight. There's no need for the fight. If Floyd should just stand up and just say, hey, you guys have wanted this for a couple of years, and now it's going to happen. Because neither fighter needs to fight any other fighter but each other. That's the only fight that we want to see, if we even want to see it. I'll tell you right now, Pacquiao is going to have a similar result. It's going to turn out similarly as it did the first time. You know my old saying. I said if Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fought 100 times, Manny Pacquiao will lose 90 of those 100.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think if anyone really cares about that fight, I would
Adrian
think
Broner does.
Well, Manny Pacquiao's no spring chicken either, and Broner, he's a tough out for anybody. He's got a good chin. He can fight. He's got some hand speed. I think it's listen. If it's Manny Pacquiao against Floyd Mayweather, then it's Manny Pacquiao against Floyd Mayweather. Next fight for both of them. There's nobody needs to earn anything. Yeah, nobody needs to earn anything. And quite honestly, should Manny Pacquiao, drink this Kool-Aid and be led around to a possible showdown with Mayweather, should he get by Broner? To me, that's actually advantageous for Pacquiao, and I'll tell you why. I don't want to see Pacquiao against Broner in any way, shape, or form, but the level of the fight that Pacquiao would have should he beat Broner would be much better, and there is rumor that Floyd's going to fight someone, but I guarantee you it's going to be a bum. Floyd doesn't challenge himself. Floyd doesn't fight quality fighters anymore. He hasn't for a long time. So, should Manny Pacquiao fight Broner first and beat him, and then Floyd fights some slug and beat him, then I'm leaning towards Manny Pacquiao. But don't be surprised if Manny Pacquiao loses to Broner and Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao 2 never happens. This fight, the only way it could happen, Sal, is if it happens next.
Well, thank you. Just like we said earlier this year, Deontay Wilder's got to fight Anthony Joshua. This fight may never happen because you know what? They keep putting other fighters in front of them. One of these guys can get cut, lose, or you never know what's going to happen. The fight game is not predictable. The only thing that's predictable is when two fighters step in the ring that they're going to be fighting each other. That's it. And I'm sorry to hear this more rhetoric and more bull. It's bad enough that we've had to wait again for a Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather second fight, as we had to wait for the first fight. Isn't that ironic that the first fight was 5 years past the best date that could have happened, and now we're got to wait another couple of years for the rematch, which I never wanted to even see. You know my stance on that. Said,
Well, you see, here's the truth. Floyd Mayweather thinks this guy is so effed up. Okay, he thinks that he's still the best fighter on the planet. He thinks that he still controls the sport, and all the fans that buy into this TMZ mentality. Okay, that is the reason why I get email after email after email from fans that are not even watching the sport anymore because of what has happened to it. And here's the saddest part. The quality of the fighters today and consistently over the last 2 years have been up there. We have some talented young fighters out there. The problem is that the business of boxing has infiltrated the sport so badly that it's turning the true fans away. And the fans that are buying into it now, they're not lifelong fans. They're buying into the rhetoric. They like the hype a little bit, and they're going to just get sick of it quickly. And to even suggest that Floyd can control anything. And Manny Pacquiao is looking like a puppet here by saying that he would, I don't care that he signs with Al Haymon, but I'm over my break. Sal, we're going to kick you to the curb for a few. We're going to get Dax Kahn on here in a minute. Hopefully Sal can get his video straightened out. But in the meantime, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in about 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace? Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us right now and joining us right now. He's with us right now. This is my man, Dax Kahn. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing very well. I'm glad you know how to work your camera because Sal doesn't. Maybe you should give him some camera lessons. He's like, it's not working. It's like, yeah, okay. All right.
The odd part is, before the show starts, me and Sal are, texting back and forth. He's telling me how to set it up.
Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, the fight last night, Terence Crawford against Benavidez, classic Crawford, I guess you would say. I mean, to me, he did stumble a little bit with the height and reach difference, but I mean, I don't even know if that's fair to say stumbled. He was in control, it seemed, for the whole fight. What was your thoughts?
Well, he adjusted. Benavidez is, he's 6'2". And the odd part about that is Crawford actually had the longer reach, but Benavidez, he's a big fighter. And, Crawford, he was, trying to figure out a way to get in there smartly. He wasn't trying to go in there recklessly. I believe that more of those adjustments was due to just that. He was trying to figure out a way where he can go in there, do his work, and not be countered, because Benavidez is a counter puncher. So I believe, it's not really fair to say it's a stumble block. No.
No, but he did what he had to do. I thought that I was a little surprised, and I asked Sal this, but I was a little surprised. I would have thought that Crawford would have had no problem fighting Benavidez on the inside. He was very hesitant, whether he just didn't want to get coaxed into what Benavidez wanted him to do or what. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that's the difference between a good fighter, a very good fighter, an elite fighter, and a great fighter. A great fighter is a guy who will control the ring, control the tempo, make that fight exactly how he wants it, and never allow the opponent to dictate anything. And for Crawford to go inside and trade, that would have allowed Benavidez to dictate, because Benavidez, being the bigger fighter, being the taller fighter, more physically strong fighter, maybe if you want to say, would have gave him the opportunities not only to counter, but it would give him the opportunities to tie Crawford up, wear him down with his size. So, that was very smart on behalf of Terence Crawford. A lot of guys would have maybe with their, due to ego or something like that, they might have said, I can beat you at your own game. The only person really in recent memory that I know of that was able to do that effectively is Andre Ward. But, Terence Crawford is a different style fighter than Andre Ward. So I don't think there was anything wrong with that. I think that was smart on behalf of him, even when the time Benavidez was on the ropes. And, he was obviously fading a little bit. Crawford was smart. He would go in and he would step back. He wouldn't stay in there for that counterpunch. And you can't criticize that. If you expected anything else, and then he would have gotten knocked out because he got caught with a large punch, then you would have criticized that. So, you have to appreciate, what Crawford did in there. He's like a surgeon.
No, I love Terence Crawford. I've always been a big fan of his. I love his style. He does not run. He boxes. That's boxing to me. He waits. He feels a fighter out for a couple of rounds, then he moves in for the kill, and he's effective, just like we saw in the 12th and final round. One thing I did notice was that he tested his uppercut early in the fight only a couple of times, and it wasn't even with full force. I think that the first time I saw him throw it was maybe even as late as the 6th or 7th round, and he just tapped. And he came back the round later, and he just tapped. He landed it, but he didn't fully land it until the shot that put Benavidez down the first time in the 12th round. That's what I meant when I said, if he was fighting a guy inside and he saw that the uppercut was going to be effective, obviously it was in his game plan. What was he waiting for? It looked like he was waiting for Benavidez to tire out. He says he thought Benavidez tired out. I didn't really see it. What was your thoughts on that?
No, I did see Benavidez tire out. It was obvious. Benavidez, I'm not sure what the official or if they even did a same-day weigh-ins. Looking at him, though, he was two weight classes above Terence Crawford on fight night. As far as the uppercut goes, and again, as far as like I stated before, between the very good, elite, and great fighters, just because you go in there and you are doing something, as you stated, why didn't he do more of that? He realized, something, this kid is fresh. Maybe these uppercuts really aren't going to affect him. He does have a great chin. I believe that the fatigue, contributed and helped Terence Crawford get that knockout. So why take chances? I can win this on the scorecards, and that knockout's going to come. In boxing, how many times, that's an old rule. The knockout will come. When you force that knockout, that's when usually it doesn't happen, or bad things should happen to you. And Terence Crawford did the absolute right thing. He just showed more elements of his game. I was going to describe, somebody asked me to describe Terence Crawford as a fighter of the past. He's a little bit of Bernard Hopkins in terms of his craftiness and his slickness, and he's a lot like Tommy Hearns in terms of his power, the way he delivers his punches, and his desire to knock the guys out. So, Terence Crawford is, the complete package, and there's really nothing to criticize about that performance last night.
I think that Terence Crawford right now, Dax, should be his next fight should be against either Spence, Thurman, or Porter, or even Danny Garcia. That's it. I don't see any other fight for him. These mandatories that might get thrown in his way. I think that the sport owes, and Top Rank owes Crawford one of these guys. I mean, Terence Crawford has proved it since the time we saw him on Showtime as an opponent. I mean, this guy was an opponent 3 or 4 fights in a row before they finally realized, hey, wait a minute, maybe we got the wrong guy. And Crawford has been, a top fighter since, arguably a pound-for-pound number one. So to me, the only fights that interest me for Terence Crawford right now is Spence or Thurman or Porter, or even I'll sprinkle in Garcia. Your thoughts, please.
Crawford's last 6 opponents, including Benavidez, have a combined record of 141, 7-1. I don't know of anybody, unless I would go and look into their records, that their last several opponents, with the exception of maybe Vasyl Lomachenko, have such a high winning percentage. In Crawford's future, it's a matter of who's willing to sign against him, especially when you look at those numbers. Or more accurately, it's what other top welterweights promoters can put aside their differences so the high-level fights for him can happen. We know Spence, Porter, Garcia, those guys would all be willing on their own. But again, with the boxing politics, network adjustments, especially with HBO, calling their boxing series to an end later on this month, and things could be sidesteps, what type of apps aside from the ESPN app with that broadcast on. So there's a lot of politics going into that. Unless something can be happen and worked out, what's going to happen to Crawford is exactly how you said. He's going to be a guy who's forced to do nothing but fight his mandatory opponents, forced to fight guys that are known, their names, but they're guys who have everything to gain and nothing to lose, and those things aren't going to benefit Terence Crawford at all.
Speaking of names, is Crawford a big name yet, Dax?
Unless you have never watched boxing, Terence Crawford is absolutely a huge name.
Well, that's what scares me. For us, for us, the boxing fan, of course, we all know who Terence Crawford is, and most, I to tell you the truth, boxing fans that I talk to, I don't think I've ever talked to one that doesn't like Terence Crawford. Maybe early on, but every boxing fan today has to give Crawford the props that he's owed. But when it comes to being a sports name, obviously boxing, but just with that sports fan who dabbles in all the sports, they know who Manny Pacquiao is, and they know who Anthony Joshua is. They know who Floyd Mayweather is. Do they know who Terence Crawford is now?
No, of course not. But of course, a lot of these names, especially one that you mentioned, the reason why they're known beyond boxing are, for their antics outside of boxing. Anthony Joshua, what helped him a lot was his Olympic gold medal win. Some of the other names that you mentioned had to do with, the promoters outside the ring. They have promoters that pushed him more. Of course, again, their antics, and of course, as I always stress, their presence on social media, which is key, which is huge, which more or less has a lot of fighters promoting themselves, and the promoters, the matchmakers, are just putting together all the particulars.
Yeah, it's a shame, and that's what's disheartening about the sport of boxing. So a guy like Adrian Broner, who's constantly in trouble with the law, more people know that name than Terence Crawford, outside the boxing world, and that's a shame. Right up your alley, the World Boxing Super Series. We had a couple of fights in that. Zolani, how do you pronounce his last name? I know Tate. Okay, I knew
I call him Tito all the time.
Yeah, I know, but I was corrected, and then I've been trying to, and then I haven't had to mention his name, so it's Tate. Okay, thank you. He advanced with his win over a 4-fight fighter who was very amateur, very accomplished amateur, I should say, Mikhail Alorayan. What was your thoughts on that fight? I know it wasn't an exciting fight, but Tate, I always thought was one of the best bantamweights out there. Was this a good fight for him, an off night, or was Aloyan just that good?
Aloyan is a very good fighter. I believe he's a 2012 and 2016 silver medal winner. Tate, he stepped out of character leading up to this. He promised a stoppage over Aloyan, and that's something usually we don't hear out of Tate. Tate's not a guy who talks a lot. Maybe a lot of that was due to the pressure being placed upon him by Inouye's win over Juan Carlos Payano last week. Maybe he felt like I have to go out here and I have to perform just as impressively, especially over a guy with such limited amount of professional experience, for me to get the respect and for me to more or less be considered as one of the front runners to win this tournament, because again, Tate is a very experienced guy who's been in there with a lot of world champions and wins over those. But trying to follow what Inoue did with Payano last week, that's a hard act to follow. Tabiti, again, that's a guy who was sort of in a similar situation. Fafer, that went the distance. There was points taken away in that fight, as well as it was with the Tate fight for holding. Fafer, I believe he pushed Tabiti later on in the fight. So Tabiti, again, that, in my opinion, that's his biggest fight to date, on the biggest stage to date anyway. Which is a great thing about this series, is that it's bringing these guys to places that they've never been, whether or not it's the caliber of opponents or whether or not it's the type of crowd that they've been in front of. They are definitely, in my opinion, the two fights so far, whether or not this series or last series, that have lacked the most fireworks. I know Tate is scheduled next to face the winner of Brian Burnett and Nonino Donaire, who are going to face off on November 3rd. Tabiti's going to face the winner of Masternak and Junior Doticos. And later on this month, I believe, in Florida, Manuel Rodriguez is going to defend his IBF belt against Jason Maloney. On the 27th, Regis Prograis is going to face Terry Flanagan. Ivan Baranchek against Anthony Yigit. A lot of good stuff happening inside there, and it's continuously going. It's revolving. And the way this series goes, Bill, and the way that these big fights are continuously happening, that's the way the whole sport should be revolving.
I was just going to ask you about the Tabiti fight. And I think he's the only American in a cruiserweight for the second cruiserweight tournament. Am I correct, or is there another one?
Really not any American cruiserweights, to be honest. But, I believe he is the only American cruiserweight.
Well, it's good to see that he advanced, because, that was a guy that there was a lot of fanfare about. And I like the fact that he's stepping up and taking the chance the way you should as a fighter. I mean, that's what fighting is all about. Dax, I wanted to ask you your thoughts.
Yeah, speaking of that, Rob Brandt was in last series. And, Rob Brandt, he was the only American in that super middleweight division that stepped up and tried to get in there. And even though he lost in his first fight, now he's going to have himself a middleweight title fight. I believe next week or the week after, he's going to face the Japanese middleweight champion, Ryota Murata.
Yeah.
So, this thing does big things for you. Even if you lose, and you lose against somebody that, of that upper level, you're automatically raising your profile.
Yeah, Rob Brandt was the only American the last time. Didn't fare too well. But, and you're right. And that's all. The other amazing thing, and I'm shocked about the television networks not trying to get this series, at least here in the States. They were so successful with this tournament, Dax, not only with people like us, but they were successful enough where, like you just mentioned and made a great point, that even the loser of a fight has gotten opportunities. The opportunity doors have opened, and yet the networks are still lagging behind. I don't understand it. Obviously, the fans enjoy it. What's wrong with the networks?
It's obviously, we can see with HBO having their last fight card and Showtime, we already know that they have their own agenda. They have their own fighters that are signed. They're only working with certain promoters. And, of course, with all the apps coming out. So that's, I believe, that really plays a factor into everything.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this whole Billy Joe Saunders situation. He had tested positive. They were very cocky about it, saying that it wasn't an illegal substance in England, or at least with the BBBSC, but yet they failed the testing through the Massachusetts Athletic Commission. And when the smoke cleared, he gave up his title. Now, Andrade is still fighting on the 20th, but now he's fighting someone else, and the WBO has announced that it will be for Billy Joe Saunders' vacated title. What's your thoughts not only on that, but on Billy Joe Saunders? I mean, this was a guy that was in... we've talked about this guy. His one fight against David Lemieux catapulted him in the eyes of many people in the boxing world, and he just seemed to just let it slip through his fingers. I mean, it seems ridiculous. He could have had a fight with possibly Triple G. He could have had a fight possibly with Canelo. He was fighting Andre, no disrespect, but it could have been a winnable fight for him. And now, where does he stand? I mean, what's your thoughts? Where's he gone? Or where's he now? Where's he going? Is this guy going to be the latest strategy of boxing or what?
I think that's going a little bit too far, considering this is his first real, at least known incident. I think what really is more disturbing was the video with him and I don't know if she was a prostitute or a stripper, whatever the case may be, offering drugs. That is the type of behavior that, beyond the whole claiming the nasal spray, he had no idea about that. That was something that was sickening. That's something we don't want to see from anybody, especially a world champion. I think that's going to haunt him longer than what happened with the PED. As far as Billy Joe Saunders, you made a great point with the David Lemieux fight. He suddenly had raised his profile. He had suddenly become in the mix and considered in there with Canelo and Triple G, and a lot of people felt he probably, could have beaten both of them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Billy Joe Saunders over the next couple months, and that's going to give us our answers. But Demetrius Andrade, that's a guy who has so much hard luck. This is a guy who had lost the title because his team could not manage to get things put together. He was stripped because of the inactivity. He finally gets himself a new promoter. He gets himself a title shot kind of right away. Then this happens, and now he's stepping in there against Walter Count. I forget how you say his last name. Cowan. Tutuaka against, who's virtually an unknown. He's a tough guy, but he hasn't really fought any names. Andre, this is, he's a hard luck kid. I think him and Billy Joe Saunders would have made a great fight. So, the fans were robbed all around in that one.
Well, tell us more about Walter Count Odankwa. I got to be honest, I've never seen him fight, and quite honestly, I've never heard of this guy. How did he land this fight? I know he obviously was ready at the last minute, but how did he not only get the fight? I could see him getting, okay, you can step in and fight Demetrius, but how does the WBO approve this for the title?
Well, because Walter, I'm just going to call him Walter so I don't butcher his last name continuously. He has held some of their minor titles. I believe their African titles. I believe maybe one of their Asian titles for a couple of years now. And he's beaten some pretty good guys, from where he is over in Nambia. He hasn't beaten any recognizable names except for maybe Godoy. And he's a knockout artist. If I was going to compare him to somebody, I would compare him very much to Julius Ndongo. That name where nobody's ever heard of, but he's a lot better than what you think, and he's actually capable of upsetting these guys. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. But that's how he got that fight, is the fact that he does hold a WBO title. He was a ranked fighter, and again, you stated he was available at the last minute. And he's a strong fighter. Make no mistake, the guy is strong. I believe out of his 17 or 18 wins, all but 1 or 2 are by knockout.
Well, knockout artists always have the equalizer with them. So
they call him the executioner.
Well, looks like we'll, and like we've always said, Demetrius Andrade was a fighter that, he was coddled a little bit coming up. I always said that I thought that they were not progressing him well, but then when he did get put in with the bigger names, he performed well. He was the exception to the rule, I thought, but you hit it on the head. The promotional problems, him, in my opinion, picking the wrong promotional teams to promote him. He finally gets free, and, is it bad luck? Is it coincidence or what? And here he is once again losing a big fight with a big name, although at least he has an opportunity to pick up a belt, which should put him in the mix for a Danny Jacobs or a Canelo or a Triple G or something like that, which is good. We do get to see Danny Jacobs fight on HBO. I believe that's the last fight, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to be the last fight on air. And then HBO is off into the sunset.
Good. They've really failed us, unless they're, rearming themselves and going to come back, but they totally threw up the flag. In my opinion, the end of last year and then all of this year was.
And they sort of got Lomachenko'd.
Well, You know, that you're right. They sort of did get Lomachenko. You're right. And the thing is Showtime was smart in picking up, at least for boxing, they were in picking up all the fights. It's just that their team just isn't as solid, but they got the fights, and that's all that matters, I guess. At the end of the day, that's all that matters to us, right? I mean, as long as the fights are there for us to watch, it is what it is. But any final thoughts on Terence Crawford and where he goes from here?
We already, there's no place for him to go but down. Let's put it that way. And now it's just up to whether or not the boxing politics can allow him to have these other big fights.
What do we got looking forward to next weekend?
Danny Jacobs and Sergey Derevchenko, and also the Heather Hardy and Shelley Vincent rematch, and then, of course, the fights that I mentioned with the World Boxing Super Series.
Well, you know what? The year is closing off strong, and hopefully it'll keep its steam going ahead as we approach 2019. I can't believe I'm saying that, but the year's almost over, man.
Even real quick on just and. Really don't want to discuss thing because I believe it's ludicrous, more or less. But you mentioned about the Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather situation.
Well, I didn't want to bring it up with you because your last words to me were, "It's not worth discussing."
It's really not. But I was just saying, they mentioned Adrian Broner. I had spoke to you last week, or hinted around about all these fights that the WBC had ordered. And we all know that the WBC, whether or not you love them, you hate them, whatever the case may be, that is the most prestigious, title out there in terms of value, and that's what everybody wants in this sport. And one of the fights that the WBC had ordered was Jorge Linares against Adrian Broner, and the winner of that fight is going to fight whoever leaves the 140-pound World Boxing Super Series with that title, which is currently held by Regis Prograis. So could you really see a Manny Pacquiao fight happening before then, if whatever happens at all, against an Adrian Broner, if he should beat Jorge Linares, which I think he more than likely would, to kind of, sidestep. Do you see, I don't see all that it's just all a mind game. It's not going to happen.
What,
that whole if he fights Broner first, and it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to sit there and say, you know what, I'm not going to fight this guy that's that's definitely beatable, so I can get myself a bigger money fight against the guy who's more well known, against the guy who's coming off more wins. That's going to set me up in a bigger way. So to me, it just really doesn't make a lot of sense.
No,
a lot of smoke.
It really doesn't. I mean, it makes zero sense, and I would really have to question Manny Pacquiao's intelligence should he fall for that. And then don't forget that Broner said publicly that he wouldn't fight either Mayweather or Pacquiao for less than $100 million. So, I mean, there's a delusional cat right there. I mean, who's going to pay him to fight that kind of money to fight? But
no, Pacquiao just needs to hang him up. He's had a great career. His win against Lucas Matisse is how he should go out. But, at times we know fighters don't pay attention to those around them, whether or not it was Freddie Roach, his former trainer, whether or not it's Bob Arum, his former promoter. Even though if they're not telling you outright, listen, kid, hang them up. It's time to go. They're giving you the hint. They're showing you all the signs. Sometimes, you just got to follow. Or Manny Pacquiao is going to end up maybe like a Roy Jones Jr., a great fighter who's provided so many phenomenal wins over elite and even Hall of Fame caliber opponents. But they end up buried on YouTube because he ends up losing to guys that are half of his skill set when he was at his best, and then ends up fighting guys just so he can get a couple wins. Leave the sport on a sensational win over a well-known guy who's held world titles. But, this is boxing. This is why we love it and why we hate it.
You got it, and I can't agree with you more. Dax, thank you very much. We'll look forward to you next week, brother.
All right, everybody, enjoy the day.
That's Dax Kahn. You can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. Hey, listen, I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we're scheduled to have Alex Purtalli join us. Don't go nowheres.
Billy C will be right back.
Osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees, are you on Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knees, covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. We also offer a prescription strength topical pain relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body. Our experienced staff will work with your doctor and handle all of your Medicare or insurance paperwork. Best of all, until your prescription is shipped directly to your home for free. Will you qualify for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knee or for a topical pain relief ointment covered by Medicare or private insurance at little or no cost to you?
Find out for free by calling the Back and Knee Pain Center at 1-800-604-1072. That's 1-800-604-1072, 1-800-604-1072.
Medical alarms for people who fall or have medical emergencies. You never think you'll need one until you do. Hi, I'm Lonnie Anderson for Advantage Alert. Today, our advanced systems locate and protect people inside and outside their homes, plus when they're on the road, allowing users with the press of a button to speak with an operator who can summon help. And even after 30 years, Advantage Alert's products remain amazingly affordable.
Call 800-985-1705.
Addiction is an epidemic in America. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, you need to call the R360 Network now.
I'm Ken Seeley, author, addiction recovery specialist, and former addict. R360 is a nationwide network of addiction recovery specialists that I personally selected and recommend.
The call is free, the consultation is free. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket cost.
Call 800-705-0023.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue?
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us and joining us right now to get his thoughts on the fights from the weekend and then some other stuff is my man Alex Purtalli. Good morning, Alex. You got your sound problem again, my man, so we'll wait for him to click on the right place, and then we can go from there. Are you there now? Okay, so Alex is going to work on his issue real quickly, and I will see when it happens. But in any event, last time this happened, it was the same thing. I could see him beautiful. It's not like Sal. You know, between Alex and Sal, maybe we should start having them work together, because Alex is the guy with the video correct, and Sal's the guy with the audio correct, and together we could have them both be part of the show. What he should do is check his mic and make sure that it's on, because I got a great picture, but we have no audio from my man Alex. Dax was talking about the Pacquiao fight. Hey, Alex, when you as soon as I hear you, I will know that the sound is working. So, and it's not. I see his lips move, but I can't hear what he's saying. I don't know. It's some lyrics, but anyway, Manny Pacquiao signing with Al Haymon. and rumor has it for them to possibly set up a fight in January with Pacquiao against Adrian Broner, like Dax says, makes zero sense at all to me. Alex, you should just try. It's probably not on your. It's probably on the mic end itself. That something is probably looking for the wrong microphone that you have. But in any event, do we have you now? Okay, now I hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Weird.
Yeah. You and Sal. Yeah, couple of technical geniuses. And you're usually good. You're usually good at it. You
it's
right now.
You can hear me now.
I hear you now because what you've done is you've eliminated your mic and headset, and you're back to your computer. So we'll fly with it the way it is. But what's your thoughts first and foremost?
It said Yeti microphone was working, and I could hear it, but
they were lying to you, man. They were lying to you.
They were.
Yeah, but you're actually going in and out. But in any event, Terence Crawford knocks out Benavidez in the 12th and final round. What was your thoughts on the fight?
I really enjoyed it. I think he's, I think he definitely is the guy that you could think of as the number one pound for pound in the sport. If not, he's up there with, maybe two or three other guys. He's very, very fun to watch. As you could see, it seems like he's lit up all Omaha, Nebraska. The crowd there was amazing.
That's what boxing's about, in my opinion. If you can't draw a crowd, and that's okay that it's his hometown. I mean, still, for people to come out, that makes it more exciting. And the knockout, oh my God, you would have thought, that roof was going to come down. That's what you need. The fighters today should be like any other high-end athlete when it comes to being able to draw a crowd. And this guy obviously draws a crowd. And he did pretty well when he was outside in Nebraska too, Alex.
Yeah. And I think that, he definitely, the crowd knows that, if you live in Omaha, even if you're probably not a boxing fan, you have one of the best athletes in the world performing in your home city. So, yeah, why would you not want to go to that? So I think that that's very cool. They even showed that big money guy there. What's his face? Warren Buffett was in the crowd. So you figure he's being talked about in a lot of different circles. If you have big, financial people there as well. I'm sure Buffett went home and talked about what he saw. The thing that's amazing, or that as a boxing fan, not amazing, but it's exactly what you want to see, is the way not only did Terence Crawford, fight a really dominant and entertaining 11 rounds, but in that last round, he closed the show. And he did it in beautiful fashion. I don't know. That uppercut was amazing, and it was it actually was partially like grazed. It didn't land completely flush, and it's frightening to imagine if it did, because it did so much damage. It was just a really enjoyable night. I mean, the thing that's amazing about him is the way he takes you apart, and he just takes his time. And he really reduced Benavidez to. I wonder if it was the leg, the bullet wound leg, that was causing Benavidez to hesitate so much, or if it was. I think more likely it was because he was getting his brain scrambled every few seconds with a hard combination. Some of the body punching both guys were doing, but Crawford's body punches would come in these bursts of like 3 shots, and it was nasty.
The funny thing is Crawford took some shots. Benavidez landed some solid shots on Crawford, something I really haven't seen anyone else do, to be honest with you. As far as the Warren Buffett comment, remember his first boxing match he ever saw, I believe, was a Floyd Mayweather fight, and man, he must have went home saying, "Oh, that's what the sweet science is. How I witnessed boxing." Because Crawford obviously is that in a nutshell. Hey, we got a super chat. My man Johnston hooked us up. He wants to know when we're coming back weekly. I've been asked that a lot, Alex, and I quite honestly, and I know this is off topic, but I've always given everybody a priority if they want to join in the reindeer games with the show here. Just throw us a super chat. It's what you put in our account that will make us talk about you now. I mean, it's the American way. But the truth of the matter is this. I got turned off a lot by this sport, not for the talented fighters that we have right now, because I think we have probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, I don't know what you think, but I think we have a very talented young crop of fighters when you look at the sport in its entirety. Compared to 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think we have a lot of talent. What's turned me off isn't the talent. It's the way the business is being conducted. And people say, oh, it's always been corrupt. Yes, it has. And I can live with the corruption. I can live with a bad decision every now and then. All of the things I've been living with my whole life with the sport of boxing. But it's up a notch now. And now you have a fan base, predominantly a fan base that isn't going to stick around for a long time. It's a short-term fan base who just doesn't have a clue. And because of the social media aspect of the world today, they talk and communicate like they're experts and shoot down everything somebody says. And it's just ridiculous. And it just turns me off. So once that gets curbed, or once there's more demand for us to come back on a daily basis, we will. But right now, it seems to be working the way we're doing it now. What's your thoughts on those comments, Alex?
I'm waiting for social media to go away before I do more things too.
Yeah, because I believe this whole social media thing is never going to last. It's it's like the internet. It's not going to catch on much. I don't think.
It's just a fad.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I mean, it is tempting to just want to tune it all out, to delete your accounts in some of these, on some, I don't know, Twitter I've always liked more than Facebook. Facebook is the one that seems to be more annoying. But I don't know. I mean, I think it is one of those things. It's tough because if you're going to work on the internet, which you do, you're going to open yourself up to those comments from the uninformed who don't care. They just want to sling mud. Yeah, I think you just have to develop a really, really thick skin and plain ignore them. But that's tough because, if you're constantly getting comments from those kind of, and we've seen there has been in the past trolls that sort of target the show that on a daily basis, there they are, they seem to get the enjoyment out of razzing you, So,
well, the thing that bothers me the most is, here I am. We're talking about Terence Crawford. I love Terence Crawford. I always have. I've been a long time fan of Terence Crawford. And I think he's number one pound for pound. If not number one, he's tied with Lomachenko. I mean, there's no other. He's not number two. I'll give him being tied with Lomachenko, but he's definitely not number two, So with that said, I wrote a book about a freed slave. Mike Tyson, one of my favorite fighters of all time. Sonny Liston, one of my favorite fighters of all time. The connection here is they're black fighters, okay? I don't like one black fighter specifically, and I'm a racist. You don't like Floyd Mayweather? You're a racist. What? I don't understand where that comes from. It's such a shallow statement, and I think you're right. It bothered me that these trolls, if you will, would say that kind of stuff, and it did affect me because it's so far from the truth. And it bothers me that people get to sling that race card around when it's convenient for them in a conversation that they're having, when that the major race issues get shoveled under the carpet. If you're going to talk about racial issues, let's talk about the real issues. Let's not just talk about issues when it's convenient to throw a race card. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's That's what I seem to get when it's related to the sport of boxing.
Right. And anyone who does that just because you don't like one guy, yeah, I mean, they're pretty transparent. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about the internet and social media and, YouTube, anywhere where there's a comment section, where comments are allowed to be posted, it has the potential to be perverted with people just, slinging mud. Or I want to use worse words than that, but I'll keep it clean. It's Sunday morning.
Right. I appreciate that.
Because look, that's what we're talking about. This is, these are down and dirty things that comments people leave. And that's just it. It's the wild, wild west. You could leave whatever you want. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in terms of the sport itself, I don't know if it's quite the 80s, but it does seem like we've got stars in almost every division.
It could be the 80s. That's the point. It could be if they fought each other. That's what the difference is, Alex.
Yeah,
it's not that we don't have the talent. It's that they're not fighting each other at the right time. We have this tendency to marinate and drag things out, and then it loses luster. It's counterproductive. In other words, the marination process, I could see where it would help a little bit, but they drag it out so long that it actually turns people away from the fight, and it's counterproductive. Like in point, we're talking about Terence Crawford right now, okay? In his big win last night. The fights that I would like to see right now is TC against, Thurman or Errol Spence Jr. or Sean Porter or Danny Garcia. They're mentioning Kell Brook. I mean, I'm cool with any of those names, but I'll bet you dollars to donuts right now that we're not going to see that next. We're going to see somebody else. And, I don't think it's fair to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford and Top Rank, I know they're one of the better promotional outfits. They do actually promote their fighters, etc. But they're actually preventing Terence Crawford from making that huge payday, which I think he deserves, and I think he's capable of getting. One of the examples was putting him on pay-per-view way too soon. He didn't do well. The next example was putting his fight exclusively on a streaming service. It didn't do that well. Okay, they put him on ESPN last night. I'm curious to see what the numbers are. I'll bet you that the numbers are fantastic last night, especially since it was following my Alabama game. But the truth of the matter is that this is what this guy needs. He needs a big fight against a big name and make some big money because he's deserved it. Nobody's paid the dues more than TC has, Alex.
Well, yeah, and I would hope we get Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. Only because Errol Spence, I think that's the fight where we're going to get one good fight, and we probably would get more than one good fight because I think whatever happens, there would be a rematch. And I think that's exactly what we want to see, is establish a rivalry. And I have a feeling both those guys are badass enough to give us a fight series, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in that first fight. Maybe they'd never want to fight each other again. But I think that that's a fight that, you have a guy in Errol Spence who's this bold, young contender who deserves a shot. You have Crawford who's looking for a dangerous opponent. I don't know. I think that fight would be great. A Kell Brook versus Crawford fight would be fun too, but I think that Crawford beats him. I think Thurman, is going to need a comeback fight, so that's not going to happen. I don't know. To me, Spence Crawford is one of the best fights you could make in the sport, right up there with Lomachenko versus Garcia, Wilder versus Joshua. You can go on and on. But
that's my point. We have all these great fights, and we're all figuring out which one of all these great fighters who they're going to fight next, because we're all accepting that they're not going to fight each other. And that's the shame of it. Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, we got it. Sugar Ray Leonard against Duran, we got it. Hagler Hearns, we got it. I mean, those fights people wanted, and we got them. And we were treated to memorable fights, historical fights, etc. now we have the fights we want. We have unification fights potentially with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, unification fights potentially with Terence Crawford and Sean Porter, or even Keith Thurman if he still has a title. I don't know. He hasn't been fighting in so long. I mean, these are all potentially huge fights. And you're right, talking about a rivalry. Consider this. A rivalry today, if you talk about a rivalry, a lot of people might mention the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao as a rivalry. Because these were two guys that were parallel in their careers. Everybody wanted them to fight. We wanted this fight for year after year after year after year. And finally, they get in the ring. It was an anticlimactic fight. And yet, the discussion of a possible rematch is still there. And I think it might be the only rivalry that people call a rivalry in the history of boxing, where the two fighters fought once and the fight wasn't even memorable. It wasn't even a great fight, and yet it's still considered a rivalry. You're referring to a rivalry where they fight each other more than once, where we're treated to multiple great fights, and today's fight fan hasn't even been able to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, the recent ones, were Pacquiao Marquez, were Rafael Marquez versus Israel Vasquez. But you're right, they haven't. I mean, most recently we did get Golovkin Canelo, which is a nice juicy rivalry. That's see, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about with the promoters who make big mistakes, is that when you have that great rivalry with Golovkin Triple G, you would think a rubber match in May would be the decision that Golden Boy and Tom Loeffler, Golovkin's people, would come to. That's probably what the fans would most want. But no, we get December Rocky Fielding,
In a weight class. Remember something. That shows you how much Canelo is becoming a cherry picker. This was the same guy that refused to let people think that he could actually make 160 and was parading around as a middleweight champion, making people fight at 158. Okay, then he fights at 160, looks bigger than Triple G, who they referred to as a monster. Then he skips over that division after he wins, basically, and he's going up to 168. I mean, come on, what kind of BS is that?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a business decision in order to work with Eddie Hearn's people, as well as to establish the East Coast mecca of boxing by fighting in Madison Square Garden, and also pick up another trinket title. I don't know. To me, those are all business decisions that, as a fan of the sport, those aren't as interesting to me as good fights. I don't think we're going to see that from Crawford, though. I would expect his next fight to be against a Porter or a Garcia or a Spence, because you got Top Rank behind him. And I think Top Rank is not going to waste, at least I hope they don't waste our time with something like that. They saw what happened last night. Their ears would probably still be ringing from that crowd. That crowd doesn't want to see Crawford fight, a Rocky Fielding equivalent opponent next. They want to see a big fight. They deserve to see a big fight. That's pretty awesome to think of. I don't know, Omaha, Nebraska? I don't think of that as a big city. It sure looked like a big hopping city last night. And that crowd really came out in support of a fighter. That's awesome. I lived in the New Haven area my whole life. I've never seen an arena do that for a fighter here. I think that's pretty impressive. And I think it would be really unfortunate, both as a business decision and to the sport itself, to not capitalize on this and give the sport a good fight. Plus, you got guys who are chomping at the bit. I'm sure Sean Porter or Errol Spence would love a Terence Crawford fight. So those fights should not be that difficult to make. It's not like, one guy is like, well, I want to weigh my options. I mean, I think that's probably the issue with Thurman, and he's going to want a warm-up fight. He'd be crazy to go right into a Crawford fight.
Listen, what ruins these potential matchups, aside from promoters and fighters wanting more than they're worth, etc., are the sanctioning bodies. The sanctioning bodies will throw out a mandatory, and then the way the business works, unless you have a title, a trinket, as you described, which I agree with, then you won't get the TV deal. You won't get the recognition. The promoters feel they can't promote a fight because it's not a world title fight. So they succumb to the pressure from the sanctioning bodies. So you got, the four major sanctioning bodies really are the ones that are the first level to blame, because they might throw some, name at us that Terence Crawford has to fight. Otherwise, he gets stripped. And then he fights that one. Then at the same time, another sanctioning body for Errol Spence or Sean Porter or Keith Thurman throw a name out that, you got to fight. So it's more than just the promoter's fault, but most of it does fall on the promoters, because the sanctioning bodies, their loophole is, well, as long as it's a unification fight, we allow the fighters to fight. So at the end of the day, it's up to them. Hey, listen, we only got a couple of minutes. I want to get your quick thoughts on the Floyd Mayweather, at least potentially forcing Manny Pacquiao to fight Adrian Broner before he fights him. My thoughts are, who the hell is Mayweather? Mayweather's shouldn't be in a discussion of boxing, let alone dictate to Manny Pacquiao that he needs to fight Adrian Broner first. I don't think many people even care to see Pacquiao Mayweather 2. And I don't think Pacquiao should even step in the ring with Broner. It's either Mayweather or nothing. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't want to see a Mayweather rematch, a Mayweather-Pacquiao rematch, but I probably would watch if it did get made. I don't think I'd pay for it, but I don't know. I mean, to me, it wouldn't improve much. Pacquiao has definitely slid back. He's not what he used to be. I think if he fought Crawford, Crawford would destroy him. It would be sad. I don't want to see that. So I think if he fought Mayweather, it's sort of
even.
Well, no. I mean, I think Mayweather doesn't have the mileage.
But it doesn't matter. My point is, it's even for two guys at the same point of their lives and career. You're right about the mileage. That gives Floyd an edge. But it's more of an even fight than Manny against a Crawford, or even Manny against Broner. Broner's a very unlikable guy, but he's a talented guy. He's got a great chin. He can fight. He's got hand speed. I mean, that's a dangerous opponent for a 40-year-old Manny Pacquiao. You don't see Floyd stepping in the ring with someone like Manny Pacquiao. Adrian Broner. So, listen, Pacquiao, Mayweather 2, I'm okay with it. But nobody else. I don't think that Floyd needs to fight somebody else. I don't think that Pacquiao has to fight somebody. Nobody is waiting for these guys to earn a rematch against each other. If they want it, they can have it next, but not drag it out. That's my point.
Well, I don't know if you saw this week, we just got the trailer for the new Pet Sematary reboot, which was a great, scary movie in 1990. It's not a movie that needed to be redone. That's what this kind of feels like to me, is that, I'll go watch Pet Sematary again, but it doesn't, I don't know, it's the same kind of thing as Pacquiao Mayweather 2. You know the names, you kind of have an idea of what they'll both do, what they both bring to the ring, but it's not, 10 years ago. So you're not going to see the fight that you always wanted to see. I don't know. It's just sort of going through the motions because they know there's an audience there that will recognize the name. They will pay for it. And it's the same thing with all these movie reboots that they figure, well, here's a generation of people that didn't see the original, or they might have heard of the original, on disc or something. So we'll get them again because they'll pay for it because this seems new. That's kind of what Mayweather's doing here. The fact that that Pacquiao signed with Al Haymon makes me think, wow, this fight might happen. But it hasn't upped my interest in it at all. To me, it's stale leftovers.
They should have re-released the book, Pet Sematary. That would have been better. Alex, I appreciate it. We look forward to you and your sound and your video next week, my man.
All right, Pussy, take care.
That's Alex Purtalli, and you can catch him next week on the show. The whole thing with Pacquiao and the potential showdown with Mayweather again, the thing that bothers me the most, I think, is the fact that Mayweather thinks it's still relative, that people really care, about this fight, and for a lot of reasons, I guess we still do. And I think Alex just hit on a very interesting point about, is the reboot going to be better? Are people going to think that, it's something that, was going to give us the fight that we always wanted or not? The style of Floyd Mayweather is not an exciting one. It's just not. It's just he's a guy that will never be exciting. He never was. Well, I shouldn't say that. He was exciting early on in his career when he was trying to make a name for himself, and somewhere along the line he became a full-fledged businessman and was not changed that and became a cherry picker and everything else. Something that you could go and see the same exact path that Canelo Alvarez is following, because he's doing the same exact thing. He was a guy that came on and was saying he's going to be the next superstar and all these things, and was well on his way of doing so. And then now all of a sudden he's becoming a cherry picker. But in any event, touching base with Terence Crawford again, I think that this guy is well-rounded. I mean, he's got it all. He's got a mean streak, which is really one of the most important things, I believe, in the sport of boxing today. Successful fighters today have to have that mean streak, and without it, they aren't really as as good as they could be. You got to have a mean streak in the sport of boxing, and that's one thing that Terence Crawford definitely displays. He displays the fact that he does have a mean streak, and he's a guy that will finish the fight when he needs to. He goes in for the kill, and what we saw last night was a fighter that, I'm almost convinced that he had a game plan of utilizing the uppercut and tested it early on. Like I said, I only saw me watching the fight. I only saw it, and I was having some issues with the TV last night for some reason. I don't know if it was my provider or what, but what I saw was two early uppercuts that he threw that did not land. Well, they landed, but he didn't land them hard. Alex said that he thought that the uppercut didn't even really land flush. I don't know. I thought it landed extremely flush, the one that knocked him down. But I think Terence Crawford was looking at that punch and knew that it was going to open up for him, and eventually, called upon it to do what it needed to do, and it did the trick. It won the fight for him. Terence Crawford is a guy that shows hand speed. He shows accuracy. He shows that killer instinct. The one thing that I will give Benavidez Jr. credit for last night was the fact that he was definitely able to land some punches on Terence Crawford. That's the truth. Terence Crawford got hit with some solid shots by Benavidez, which kind of shows us that, he's got a pretty solid chin himself. So that's what it is. We're having trouble reaching Sal, so looks like he won't be joining us. Some other things I wanted to mention. I got a couple of emails during this past week that, were just personal back and forth. They did not want them read on air or didn't ask me to, or normally I will. But it also had to do with Johnston's Super Chat, with us going back to a daily format, which is extremely possible. And as my man Namath in the background here, he's likes to get on TV as much as he can. But the truth of the matter is that, I've been critical, and I was called out on it about Jarrell Miller. My hang-up with Jarrell Miller, and yes, I call him a big fat pig, and he is. He's gained almost 70 pounds since he turned pro. He certainly doesn't look it. No. I mean, he looks it. I mean, he doesn't look it when he's fighting. He does seem to be fluid when he lets his hands go, etc. But my hang-up with him is that he doesn't show the discipline that I like to see in a fighter. But more than that, and I don't care what kind of physique a fighter comes in the ring as, if they can produce, then that's all that matters. And there's where my problem lies with Jarrell Big Fat Miller, is that he hasn't really produced. Who's he fought? Tomas Adamek, we're going to give him credit for beating a 40-something-year-old Tomas Adamek who's been in more wars than a fighter pilot. I mean, come on. This is a guy that shouldn't have even fought. He shouldn't have been granted a license. And not only that, but he had been retired. And Jarrell Miller, this was a guy that turned down a meaningful fight for him against Kubrat Pulev. He said he didn't like the offer, said he didn't want to go to Batavia. He said a lot of excuses, but the truth of the matter is that he did not go. And, it didn't work. You know what I mean? So I look at a fight that is being discussed right now. It happens to be with Kubrat Pulev against Hughie Fury. Now, it's not that I'm a huge fan of Hughie Fury, because I feel very similar with Hughie Fury. I did not see him actually fight some of the fighters that he should have fought before he got a title shot. And Hughie Fury, a heavyweight who has got a record of 21 wins, 1 loss, with 11 of his wins coming by knockout. His only loss at the hands of the heavyweight that Anthony Joshua last beat. Did he beat Joseph Parker last? No, the Joseph Parker fight. But Hughie Fury lost a close decision to Joseph Parker. Now he, at 21-1, is taking on Kubrat Pulev, whose only loss was, his 2 losses. One was against Klitschko. And did Pulev, wait a minute, did Pulev even, Pulev fought Anthony Joshua, I'm pretty sure, but those 2 guys are fighting each other. That is what boxing's all about, when young fighters fight each other. Now, the winner of Hughie Fury against Pulev, should the fight happen, is a legitimate contender. It's a guy who beat another contender. That's where I don't respect Jarrell Miller. He's going to get a world title shot, and he hasn't even had to climb the ladder. Speaking of climbing the ladders, a guy that I'm trying to show how to climb the ladder to get his video to work, at least he's here. He knows how to pick up the phone. My man Sal, you back with us, brother?
I'm back, Bill. I'm back. I've been trying to do things to get this video, and it goes in and out. And I'll tell you, I need you to be my air traffic controller here to talk me through it.
I'm talking about Hughie Fury and Kubrat Pulev looking to fight each other sometime as the year is closing out. They're going to be fighting on October 27th, and Hughie Fury is actually going to Bulgaria. I said Batavia before. I meant Bulgaria to fight Pulev. as an IBF eliminator, with the winner getting a shot at Anthony Joshua. My point here, Sal, is that these are two young heavyweights actually fighting each other versus a guy like Jarrell Miller, who looks to just fight washed up or never been type fighters, but yet pounds his chest like your boy Deontay Wilder, saying that he's the best in the division. We need more fighters to climb the ladder. What's your thoughts?
Well, we do. I mean, that's the playbook from the 70s, 80s, and even before. That you would have a fighter that you can have established a great foundation, and early on in his career, he's being tested against different styles of fighters, different size of fighters, tall, thin, short, built, boxers, punchers. So he becomes a well-rounded fighter. And once he graduates from each of those steps and those styles that he can adapt and he can overcome and he can learn, then he's a polished stone and a fighter that is capable of tests beyond the ones that he had been given. And he's able to step up with confidence to face anybody in the world they put in front of him. That's the old playbook. And it's what gave fans the type of fights that you would see the fighter develop and to learn, and you'd see the strides and the progress. And nowadays it's just a different game book. It's just a different playbook, and it's not as much as an effort on some level to just get in the ring and fight the fighter of the week who's going to be an opponent. And let's pad up and build up that record, and seldom do we step up the level of competition for these fighters to test themselves and to have the confidence to fight anybody anywhere. And that's the stage, and that's the case, and that's the point that you and I talk about on a regular basis. So some of these fighters that are more than capable of doing it, they have risen to the occasion. Whether it's early or later, they still are capable of doing it. And those are fighters that do blossom. The other ones, like some of the names you mentioned 5 minutes ago, may have never really been tested. And they have just been fed opponent after opponent. And they pound their chest in their false bravado because this is how they have been developing. And it's going to be a far cry from the truth if and when they ever do step in with a world-class world beater that's going to tear them apart.
The thing that doesn't make sense, promoters and managers and whoever else is involved with teams want to protect their fighter. I get it. So they don't want to put him in too tough because the gravy train might get exposed or whatever. But I've said this a million times. What they're not doing is giving the fighter a chance to get better. So by climbing the ladder like the old days, and once you reach a top 10 contendership, so to speak, and this, put an asterisk because this could go across the four major sanctioning bodies. So as long as you reach number 10 in one of the sanctioning bodies, then from that point on, you should be able to move up and challenge a guy above you in the contendership and move forward. And then as you climb that ladder of contenders, even if you're in a sanctioning body that you're not ranked in another one, as long as, we got to give fighters credit. If they climb the ladder of their own sanctioning body, whichever one they're signed up with, so to speak, and they reach that number one spot, that is when they should step in the ring with that champion. There's no other way. At least you prove along the way that you're beating those other contenders. What happens today, Sal, is what happens. We got a guy that's a champ, and then all of a sudden some other guy out of left field, he's getting a title shot. And you're like, who is he? And then they build, he's this. He's a badass from this country and that country. And then everyone, okay. Yeah, he's good. He's got an undefeated record. And then he's not good. And then you have guys like Miller who are head and fed bums and, pounding his chest. And I know Deontay Wilder's not really a bum, but his career path was very similar. Now he's stepped up in his last fight. He's fought a legitimate fighter, and now he's landed the biggest fight of his career. So time will tell. But the truth of the matter is even he didn't climb up the ladder. And then because of his success, a guy like Miller might say, well, I want to follow the same path as Wilder, or somebody else might say, I want to follow the same path as Demetrius Andrade, or somebody else that really wasn't challenged early. But do we end up with a quality fighter? It's sometimes we do, Sal, but most of the time we don't.
Well, and that's why I say it's a roll of the dice, and it's politics, it's marketing, and guess what? Fighters are commodities, and if you have a fighter that could be a winning horse or winning fighter. For the whole body involved, managers, promoters, this and that, well, they're going to promote them, they're going to protect them, they're going to test them. And to Deontay Wilder's credit, if his pathway was, as you often suggest, filled with, bums here and there, guess what? He had to step up to the occasion throughout that pathway, and every time he's been able to come through with his hand raised in the air. So if that's the one model that has beat the odds and that has risen to the top and now is the winning commodity for everyone else to benefit from, and including himself, then guess what? That formula worked for him. But he's an exception to the rule. And the bottom line is we see another one like a Baby Miller that, is going to be maybe stuck on a plateau, where he's still a commodity, he's still making some money, selling some tickets, and people around him are content at this point. But when you do step up and put him in against an Anthony Joshua or against a Deontay Wilder or against somebody else, he might have a surprise coming for him. That's just the way the game is today, Bill.
If I were Fat Miller, I'd be cautious about getting in an elevator, because that's about where he's going to get stuck in an elevator. But I tell you, a good fight for him would be the winner of Huey Fury, Kubrat Pulev, or even Joseph Parker. I think Joseph Parker would be a good test for Miller. If he beats a Joseph Parker, then I would say, okay, give him a shot. But that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is he's going to get a shot, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's against Anthony Joshua next. Because regardless of who wins the Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury fight in December, there's going to be a rematch. Both fighters have an opportunity to exercise a rematch clause. So, I mean, if Deontay Wilder loses that fight, of course he's going to want a rematch clause. If Tyson Fury gets knocked out, of course he's going to want a rematch clause. So get ready, boys and girls. We're going to see Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder twice. That's what we're going to see. And in the meantime, Anthony Joshua has to find another dance partner. Now, the one of the sanctioned bodies, it might be the WBA, maybe. There's rumor that they may force AJ to fight Dillian White, who was, the number one mandatory for the WBC forever. But now all of a sudden, he's in the mix. He's proved himself. He's climbed the ladder after his loss against AJ previously, that maybe he's going to be a fight. So he's a potential opponent for AJ. Then the other shot is Miller. Don't be surprised if we don't see AJ fight Miller. I would much rather see Anthony Joshua fight the winner of Tyson Fury against Deontay, but I doubt it's going to happen. Another fight I'd rather see is Miller against Dillian White. What's wrong with that fight, Sal? That's a good fight.
That's a good fight. And as you were going through these scenarios, again, if that's the model that Baby Miller's camp has adhered to and game plan, well, eventually it's going to pay off, because he's going to be in the ring with a world champion or a top contender, and that's their investment. That's a couple of $100,000 or $1 million that you're investing in, and it's time to produce or to shut up, and that's just the way. Like I said, you're a commodity, and good, bad, or indifferent, like it or not, they're going to try to extend your lifespan as a professional fighter, keep you marketable as a professional fighter, and make sure they can maximize your payday as a professional fighter. That's what the camps around people that are commodities do, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's the playbook. So, like I said, he'll get an opportunity to step up, and if he can do so successfully, we'll see him then get the test of time and fight for the title, fight for this one, do something special. And if he falls flat on his face or gets beat badly, he'll just disappear into the pool of fighters that had potential, that were contenders, that were in a state that just never made it to that next level successfully.
As we wrap it up, I want to make one point. Another one. Not another one, Billy C.
Another one. But, well, come on, Ron Papil.
Yeah. The thing is this. We and a lot of the fans that watch and listen to this show are what I would call a diehard fan. A fan that generally has been involved in the sport for a long time. And if we have some newbies that are just getting into the sport and they listen and watch our show, I'm glad and I welcome them, of course. But, the truth of the matter is we've been blessed with getting involved in the sport at young ages, and we've followed this sport religiously and with a lot of loyalty throughout our lives. And the reason is because the sport hooked us, and we got involved with the sport, and we've become what I term as lifelong fans. When you look at today and the world of today, especially in the sports business, you'll see lifelong fans in other sports, in football, in baseball. A kid is born and their parents, you're a Jet fan. I've cursed my kids and my grandkids as being Jet fans. And I was at a wedding this weekend, and my nephew.
I'm a Jet fan.
And my nephew was I'm a Jet fan. He starts rattling off all of the stats and all the stuff, and I was impressed. And I'm saying to myself, geez, I'm glad he's a Jet fan. Then I realized my sister, I forced her into a Jet fan, and that's her son, So the truth, and the point I'm trying to make is that you become a lifelong fan of other sports and teams and what have you. In boxing, the names change more rapidly than a team isn't going to change, right? They may move to a different city. Maybe they change their names. A couple of teams have, but for the most part, you're a lifelong fan. But when it comes to boxing, you're not. The sport has to keep you into it to a degree. If you get into the sport and become a fan of a fighter, and then when that fighter retires, there has to be another fighter that you can follow and love the sport. That's where the sport is different today, Sal. If somebody was a Jarrell Miller fan or even a Deontay Wilder fan, and Deontay Wilder is a great example, because there's a lot of arguments about Deontay Wilder and the people that love him and the people that, I don't hate him, I just think he's overrated. And the question is this: for the fan that's become a Deontay Wilder fan, and I'm using him as an example because he's a big name in the sport today, that have become a Deontay Wilder fan, should he lose a fight? My question would go back to these fans. Are you going to remain a fan? Are you still going to be a boxing fan? That you can go back to Floyd Mayweather. There was a lot of people that wanted to see Floyd lose, but there were also a lot of other people that loved Floyd. And my question is, are they still into the sport of boxing? Is Floyd relative now, even though I think he shouldn't be, but is he only because the fans that follow him stay loyal to him? And then once that fighter is gone, are they going to continue to be fans? Boxing needs to create lifelong fans to keep it going the way we want it to. And I just don't think that that's happening today, Sal. I just don't think that boxing is in a place where it's creating lifelong fans.
You're so eloquent with the whole lineage of what you just described, and I followed it, and I agree with you 100%. Go figure that. Growing up, you could see yourself as a Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier fan, and then when their time was over, your level of excitement about the fight game, the baton was successfully passed, because now you became a Roberto Duran or a Sugar Ray Leonard fan, or a Marvin Hagler fan, or a Wilfredo Benitez fan, or then you became a Oscar De La Hoya fan. there was always that baton being passed because you were hooked as a fan of boxing. And you said it so well. Every era, there is a star that one could follow if they're a true boxing fan. And they could identify with, and they could praise, and they could follow, and they're still interested. And that's true. Today, I don't think that is as evident. But still, that pathway that you described is 100% true. Boxing was always a sport, the core interest, but it was the stars of boxing that you became glued to, and that you were looking at the sport of boxing synonymously with their name. And then when they were retiring or their best days were behind them, you automatically found a new star that you could identify, follow, and want to see do great things. So yeah, that's the thing that's a shame, because it's not as evident today. But that was perfectly a perfect example of how it used to be.
Well, you know what it was, like what I was talking earlier. We saw these fights. The fans demanded a fight. Tommy Hearns against Hagler, or Hagler against Sugar Ray Leonard, or Sugar Ray Leonard against Hearns, or Hagler against Duran, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all these fights, or I should say Hearns against Duran, all these fights. They marinated for a short period, then bam, we had the fights. So as a fight fan, it was hard. You were you had your favorite fighters, but you were into the sport because there was so many great fights. There was so many great matchups. Today, they get you into a fighter, and then you follow that fighter, and you're because you love that fighter, you're supportive of whatever person he gets in the ring with. You're not really looking at the whole sport, and that's where the problem is, in my opinion. I think that fans of Deontay Wilder or especially Jarrell Miller, they're going to disappear. They're going to go into something else as soon as those fighters tumble. It's going to happen.
I don't know, Bill. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, maybe there was enough of the hook.
Don't get me wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that today's sport and the way it's run is developing lifelong fans. I just don't see it. Hey, listen, we're out of time already, my man. And yes, you and I have to make some time to get you straightened out. And listen, boys and girls, remember, next week we will be talking about the Danny Jacobs fight. That is scheduled for next week, I believe. So we'll be talking about that one. So you're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.